Hi class, we're ready to
Wait,
move on to Unit 4.1. As we start Unit 4.1 here, standing up for the truth of the gospel, there's some terms that we need to know, and you can find these terms in your textbook. The first term is accursed, which means that we are under God's punishment, we are condemned. The second term is justified or declared righteous. The third term is merit. Merit has two parts to it, a noun, which means excellence or superior quality, and then the verb, which means to be worthy of a reward. And number four, the fourth term is pillars, and a figurative expression referring to church leaders. So Paul in Galatians talks about meeting with the pillars of the church, so that's a figurative expression referring to the church leaders that he met with. On his first journey, Paul started churches in Derbe, Lystra, and Iconium, which would be in Turkey, Asia Minor, and then he revisited them on the start of his second missionary journey. And in between, some false teachers came in, and those false teachers are known as the Judaizers. I mentioned them in the introductory notes. These Judaizers, Jewish believers, taught they would go into these new places and these new churches. They would teach the new believers that the only way that they could be saved was to follow the demands of the Mosaic law. Sure, Jesus, 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 but then you also had to become like a Jew and follow all the demands of the Mosaic law. And Galatians was a book written in response to that, and he wanted to show them that the gospel he preached was true. He made it very clear, like in Galatians 2:16, that our works cannot save us. No matter how hard we try to keep the law, those good works in trying to keep those laws cannot save us. We can only be saved by what Christ has done by us, done for us. He also made sure that he let them know that he was an apostle by direct selection, direct revelation of Jesus. And the gospel that he preached was not going to lead to immorality. The gospel that he preached, that salvation came through Jesus Christ and him alone, would, would call us to live a life of holiness. That was one of our pursuits. And in the beginning part of his letter, he expressed astonishment that the Galatian believers had so quickly forsaken his teachings and had gone after this other gospel. So those were the main emphases that he wanted to get across there in the first part of Galatians. And there was even a confrontation. Paul had to confront Peter, another one of the apostles, when Peter was being a bit hypocritical. Peter was withdrawing from the Gentile Christians, and Paul had to go and confront him about this and saying, that's not right for you to do that. And eventually Paul and Peter were reconciled, and they were unified doctrinally. They both believed that justification by grace apart from any works done under the Mosaic law, was how people were saved. And mixing of law and grace would frustrate God's work in a person's life, because no matter all the good deeds that we do can never measure up, can never reach the standards of God's holiness. And Paul was trying to preach that wherever he went, and certainly in his letter to the Galatians he said that we're saved, we're justified, we're declared righteous because of what Christ has done for us, not by the amount of works that we do, not by the extreme good works that we could do. None of those things would ever save us and make us right with God. We are justified simply, and we're saved simply by grace through faith, which is one of the key themes, the high marks of the book of Galatians. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll continue to work on these videos. Hopefully they're helpful. And hopefully they help you understand the textbook and the material that we're going through at this point.